My children put me in a home for my own safety, so I transferred every penny elsewhere. My 3 children sat me down at my own kitchen table and told me I wasn't safe living alone anymore, that I needed professional care, and that they'd already picked out the perfect facility for my golden years. They said it was for my own safety, for my own good, for my own peace of mind. But what they really meant was that I'd become inconvenient, that my independence threatened their inheritance plans, and that warehousing me somewhere would make their lives easier. They forgot one crucial detail though. They forgot that I still had complete control over every penny I'd ever earned, saved, and invested. And while they thought they were securing their future by putting me away, I was busy making sure they'd never see a dime of what they thought was already theirs. This is how I taught my ungrateful children that underestimating their mother would cost them everything. I raised 3 children on my own after their father died in a car accident when they were still young. Michael was 12, Jennifer was 10, and little Danny was only 7. I worked 2 jobs, days at the insurance office, nights cleaning the bank downtown. I clipped coupons until my fingers bled, bought generic everything, wore the same winter coat for 15 years. I saved every birthday dollar, every tax refund, every bonus check, because I wanted my children to have what I never had: security, opportunity, choices. I put Michael through law school, co-signed his first apartment, helped him buy his practice. I paid for Jennifer's wedding, the down payment on her dream house, 3 years of fertility treatments when she was trying to get pregnant. I covered Danny's rehab twice, his gambling debts 3 times, his rent more months than I could count. I never asked for payback, never demanded gratitude, never made them feel guilty for taking what I freely gave. I just kept working, kept saving, kept building something solid for their futures. But somewhere along the way, my love became their expectation, my sacrifices became their entitlement, my open wallet became their safety net, and they started treating me like a bank instead of their mother. Phone calls only came when they needed something. Visits only happened when they wanted to ask for money. Holidays became negotiations about who had to deal with mom this year. The first sign of trouble came when I turned 75 and Michael suggested I should think about estate planning. He brought over glossy brochures about trusts and wills, talked about protecting my assets from taxes, offered to help me organize my affairs. What he really wanted was to get his hands on my financial information, to know exactly how much I was worth, to start positioning himself as the responsible son who should have power of attorney when the time came. I smiled and told him I'd think about it, but inside I was taking notes. Taking notes about how his concern felt more like surveillance, how his questions felt more like an audit, how his offers to help felt more like a takeover attempt. I'd spent 60 years learning to read people, and I could read my own son clear as day. He was already spending my money in his head. Jennifer was more subtle but no less obvious. She started dropping by unannounced, ostensibly to check on me, but really to inventory my house. She'd comment on how valuable certain pieces were, how much space I didn't really need, how dangerous it was for someone my age to live alone in such a big house. She'd mention friends whose parents had moved to lovely communities where they had so much help available, where they were so much safer. Danny, bless his heart, was the most honest about his intentions. He flat out asked me for a loan to start his 3rd failed business venture, and when I said no for the first time in his adult life, he accused me of being selfish, of hoarding money I'd never be able to spend, of not caring about his dreams. He said I owed him, that after everything he'd been through, the least I could do was help him get back on his feet. The entitlement in his voice was breathtaking. That's when I realized my children weren't planning for my death, they were planning for my irrelevance. They wanted me alive but contained, grateful but compliant, wealthy but powerless. They wanted a mother they could visit on weekends and ignore the rest of the time, a mother whose assets they could control for her own good, a mother who would hand over her independence with a smile and a thank you. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in March. I'd been having some dizzy spells, nothing serious, just the result of new blood pressure medication, but I mentioned it to Michael during one of his increasingly frequent check-in calls. By that afternoon, all 3 of my children were at my front door with serious expressions and a folder full of paperwork. "Mom, we need to talk," Jennifer said, settling into my living room like she was conducting a business meeting. "We've been worried about you. The dizzy spells, living alone in this big house, no one to help if something happens. We think it's time to consider other options." Other options, it turned out, was their euphemism for Sunset Manor, a premier assisted living facility they'd already toured, already approved, already put a deposit down on. They had brochures, testimonials, a move-in date. They'd thought of everything except asking me what I wanted. "It's beautiful, Mom," Jennifer gushed, showing me pictures of beige hallways and plastic flowers. They have activities, 3 meals a day, medical staff on site 24/7. You'll make new friends, have help with everything, never have to worry about maintaining this house or cooking or cleaning. Michael nodded along, playing the practical son. We've looked at the finances, and between your social security and pension, it's completely affordable. We can rent out this house to help cover any extra costs. It's really the perfect solution. Danny, ever the emotional manipulator, took my hands and looked into my eyes. Mom, we love you too much to let you keep living like this. What if you fall and no one finds you for days? What if you have a medical emergency? We can't stand the thought of losing you because we were too selfish to make the hard choice. The hard choice. That's what they called stealing my independence, selling my home, and warehousing me with strangers. The hard choice was apparently theirs to make, not mine to live with. I listened to their presentation, their carefully rehearsed arguments, their fake concerns wrapped in real greed. They had it all figured out. They'd have power of attorney to help manage my affairs. They'd handle the sale of my house to reduce my stress. They'd visit regularly and make sure I was getting the care I deserved. What they didn't say but what I heard loud and clear was that they'd already divided up my assets in their minds. Michael would get the house and the investment accounts, Jennifer would get the antiques and jewelry, and Danny would get enough cash to finally launch whatever scheme he was running this week. I was supposed to be grateful for their generosity in letting me spend my final years in institutional beige while they fought over my belongings. I need time to think about it, I said finally, and I watched their faces fall. They'd expected gratitude, compliance, maybe tears of relief that they were taking such good care of me. They hadn't expected resistance. Mom, Michael said carefully, there's really not much to think about. The medical facts are clear, you're not safe living alone anymore. The financial analysis shows this is the best option. The facility has an opening now, but they won't hold it indefinitely. There it was, the pressure tactic. Act now or lose out forever. Create urgency to prevent me from actually thinking about their proposal, from considering alternatives, from realizing I had choices they weren't presenting. I said I need time, I repeated, and something in my voice must have gotten through because they backed off, though not gracefully. They left their brochures, their timeline, their expectations, and made it clear they'd be back for my answer soon. That night, I sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd packed thousands of school lunches, where I'd helped with homework and worried over report cards, where I'd celebrated their successes and comforted their failures, and I made a decision that would change everything. If my children wanted to treat me like I was already dead, I'd give them a preview of what that would actually cost them. I called my bank first thing the next morning and made an appointment with the manager. Then I called my financial advisor, my attorney, and my accountant. By the end of the week, I had a plan that would ensure my children learned the difference between loving their mother and loving her money. The first step was the easiest. I moved every penny out of the accounts my children knew about. The checking account where my social security was deposited, the savings account I'd mentioned over the years, the CDs they'd helped me roll over, all of it went into new accounts at a different bank, accounts they didn't know existed, accounts they couldn't find even if they tried. The second step required more planning. I met with my attorney and revoked the will my children had encouraged me to write, the one that left everything to them in equal shares. In its place, I created something far more interesting, a will that would teach them exactly what their love was worth. But the real masterpiece was what I did with my house. Michael had been particularly interested in its value, had even suggested I get it appraised just to know what we're working with. So I had it appraised and then I sold it, not to some random buyer, but to the city, as a donation for their new community center project. The tax benefits were nice, but the real reward would be watching my children's faces when they realized their inheritance had become a public park. I covered my tracks carefully. I set up automatic transfers to pay rent on a lovely little apartment across town, somewhere my children would never think to look for me. I arranged for my mail to be forwarded to a P.O. box. I even hired a service to maintain the house's exterior so the neighbors wouldn't get suspicious about it sitting empty. Meanwhile, I let my children think their plan was working. When they came back the following week for my decision, I put on a show worthy of an Oscar. I told them I was scared, that I'd been thinking about what they'd said, that maybe they were right about me not being safe alone anymore. I trust you to handle everything, I said, dabbing at fake tears. You've always taken such good care of me. If you think Sunset Manor is the right place, then I'll go. The relief on their faces was almost insulting. They'd been so worried I might fight them, might make their lives difficult, might actually want a say in my own future. Michael immediately went into action mode, pulling out documents for me to sign. Power of attorney papers, financial management agreements, authorization for them to handle the sale of my house. I signed everything with a shaky hand, playing the part of the frightened old woman who was grateful to have such responsible children. What they didn't know was that the accounts they were getting access to contained exactly $47.83, the minimum balance required to keep them open. The house they were so excited to sell was no longer mine to sell. The assets they were planning to manage had vanished like morning mist. The move to Sunset Manor was surprisingly smooth. Jennifer had picked out my room, Danny had arranged the movers, and Michael had handled all the paperwork. They were so proud of themselves, so pleased with how efficiently they'd managed my transition from independence to institutionalization. They practically glowed with self-congratulation as they helped me arrange my few belongings in my beige room with its view of the parking lot. "See, Mom, isn't this nice?" Jennifer said, adjusting the plastic flowers on my windowsill. "You'll be so much happier here, so much safer." Michael was already making plans. "We'll get the house on the market next week. The real estate agent thinks it'll sell quickly in this market. We'll get you the best possible price." Danny was more focused on immediate concerns. "Mom, I'm going to need access to your checking account to pay for things you might need here. Little extras, personal items, whatever will make you comfortable." I nodded along, the picture of grateful compliance. "Whatever you think is best, dear. I don't understand all this financial stuff anyway." Oh, if only they knew how well I understood it. If only they could see the real bank statements tucked safely in my new apartment, the investment accounts growing steadily in my new name, the carefully planned future they'd never be part of. The first sign something was wrong came 2 weeks later when Michael tried to access my main checking account and found it nearly empty. He called me in a panic. "Mom, there's something wrong with your account. There's barely any money in it. Did you move funds somewhere else? Did someone steal from you?" I played confused, a little frightened. "I don't know, honey. I thought you were handling all that now. Maybe there's been a mistake?" Michael spent the next 3 days on the phone with my old bank, trying to trace where the money had gone. The bank, bound by privacy laws and the careful instructions I'd left, told him they couldn't discuss account activity without my explicit written permission. When he asked me to sign the release forms, I told him I was too upset to think clearly, too worried about being robbed to make big decisions. Meanwhile, Jennifer was having her own problems. She'd brought an appraiser to my house, only to discover that I no longer owned it. The city clerk's office confirmed the sale, the donation, the complete transfer of ownership. There was no house to sell, no equity to access, no inheritance to divide. Jennifer confronted me during visiting hours, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Mom, what did you do with the house? The records show you donated it to the city. Why would you do that without talking to us?" I blinked at her with what I hoped looked like confusion. "Did I do that? I don't remember. Maybe I was having one of my confused spells." "Are you sure that's what happened?" The beautiful thing about playing elderly and confused is that people believe what they want to believe. My children had convinced themselves I was losing my mental faculties, so now every inconvenient truth could be explained away as dementia, every missing asset as the result of my declining mind. But they weren't stupid, and they weren't ready to give up. Michael hired a forensic accountant to trace my financial activity. Jennifer consulted with an elder law attorney about having me declared incompetent. Danny, in his typical fashion, just kept asking me for money and getting increasingly frustrated when I claimed not to have any. The investigation took 2 months, and during that time, I played my part perfectly. I attended the Sunset Manor activity sessions, made friends with the other residents, participated in the weekly family meetings where my children discussed my condition with the staff. I was the model patient, grateful for their care, content with my new life, blissfully unaware of any financial irregularities. When Michael finally got the forensic accountant's report, he requested an emergency family meeting. All 3 of my children gathered in my beige room with grim expressions and thick folders full of evidence. "Mom, we need to talk," Michael said, his lawyer voice fully engaged. "We've discovered some irregularities in your financial situation. Money has been moved, accounts have been closed, assets have been transferred. We're very concerned that someone may have taken advantage of you." I looked at them with wide, worried eyes. "Someone stole from me? How much did they take?" Jennifer leaned forward. "Mom, according to our investigation, someone moved over $800,000 out of your accounts in the months before you came here. Almost everything you had saved is gone." The number was impressive, wasn't it? Almost 50 years of careful saving, smart investing, and frugal living had added up to quite a substantial sum. No wonder my children had been so eager to get their hands on it. $800,000? I gasped, clutching my chest like I might faint. "All my money is gone? What am I going to do? How will I pay for this place?" Danny was already calculating. "Mom, we're going to help you get it back. We'll hire investigators, contact the FBI if we have to. Someone is going to pay for this. Michael was more practical. The first step is to report this to the police. But Mom, we need you to be completely honest with us. Did you give anyone permission to access your accounts? Did you sign any papers you don't remember? Did anyone pressure you to move money around? This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I looked at each of my children, these adults I'd raised and sacrificed for, these people who'd put me in a nursing home for my own safety while planning to divvy up my life savings. I took a deep breath and dropped the confused act. No one stole from me, I said clearly, my voice stronger than they'd heard it in months. I moved the money myself. The silence in that beige room was deafening. I watched comprehension dawn on their faces, watched the pieces click into place, watched their concern transform into something much less charitable. What do you mean you moved it yourself? Jennifer asked carefully. I mean exactly what I said. Every penny that's missing from those accounts, I moved it myself. To new accounts, at a new bank, in my name only. I folded my hands in my lap and smiled. Turns out I'm not as confused as you all thought I was. Michael's face went through several interesting color changes. Mom, that's not possible. You were having memory issues, confusion spells. You couldn't manage your own affairs. According to whom? I asked. According to you three, who decided I was incompetent because it suited your purposes. According to the doctors here, who've never found any sign of dementia or cognitive decline. Or according to me, the woman who successfully managed her finances for 70 years before you decided to take over. Danny was the first to get angry. Mom, this is insane. You can't just hide money from your own family. We were trying to help you. Help me what, exactly? I asked. Help me lose my independence? Help me give up my home? Help me spend my final years in institutional care while you three divided up everything I worked for? That kind of help? Jennifer tried a different approach. Mom, we were worried about you. The dizzy spells, living alone, the house being too much to manage. We genuinely thought this was the best option for you. The best option for whom? I asked. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like the best option for 3 adult children who wanted their inheritance early and their mother out of the way. The mask was completely off now. Michael, the lawyer, went straight for the legal threats. Mom, what you've done could be considered fraud. Moving assets to avoid legitimate care costs, hiding money from family members who have power of attorney. What power of attorney? I asked sweetly. The one you tricked me into signing by convincing me I was losing my mind? The one that gives you access to accounts that no longer exist? That power of attorney? Jennifer was crying now. But they weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of frustration, of rage, of plans falling apart. Mom, how could you do this to us? We're your children. We love you. Do you? I asked. Because loving children don't warehouse their mother in a nursing home so they can sell her house. Loving children don't manipulate their mother into signing away her independence. Loving children don't spend their mother's money before she's even dead. The truth hung in the air between us like a toxic cloud. We all knew what this had really been about. It had never been about my safety or my well-being or my happiness. It had been about their convenience, their financial security, their future plans that required me to be compliant and contained. Danny made one last desperate attempt. Okay, fine, maybe we made mistakes. Maybe we should have handled things differently. But Mom, we're family. Can't we work this out? Can't you give us access to some of the money? I'm drowning here, and Jennifer's kids need college funds, and Michael has his practice to think about. Let me ask you something, I said. In all your planning, in all your discussions about my future, did any of you ever consider what I wanted? Did anyone ask if I wanted to leave my home, my garden, my independence? Did anyone wonder if I might have my own plans for my money? The silence was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm going to stay here at Sunset Manor for exactly as long as I choose to stay here. Not because you put me here, but because I'm discovering I actually like some aspects of community living. I'll pay my own way, thank you very much, from accounts you'll never see or access. I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in months. My money, the money I earned, saved, and invested over 50 years of hard work, will go where I decide it should go. Some of it will fund my own care for as long as I need it. Some of it will go to charities that actually help people instead of exploiting them. And some of it will go to people who've shown me genuine love and respect in my final years. Michael was desperately trying to salvage something. Mom, please. We made mistakes, but we're still your children. Surely that counts for something. Being my children means you had my love, my sacrifice, my support for your entire lives, I said. It doesn't mean you're entitled to my money. Love isn't supposed to come with a price tag, but apparently yours does. I walked to the door of my beige room, then turned back to look at them one more time. I want you to think about something. You put me in here because you said I wasn't safe living alone. But the most dangerous people in my life weren't strangers or burglars or scam artists. They were my own children, who saw me as an obstacle to overcome rather than a person to love. That was 3 years ago. I'm still at Sunset Manor, though I've moved to a much nicer apartment on the assisted living side rather than the nursing care section. Turns out when you're paying your own way, you get a lot more choices about how you live. My children have made various attempts at reconciliation over the years. Michael offered to help me reorganize my finances, code for getting access to my hidden accounts. Jennifer brings her kids to visit occasionally, clearly hoping I'll be moved by grandmotherly feelings to restore their college funds. Danny has been through 2 more rehab programs and still calls asking for loans to get back on his feet. I'm polite but distant. I answer their questions about my health, ask about their lives, play the role of dutiful mother during supervised visits. But I don't trust them with anything that matters, and I never will again. Instead, I've built new relationships. There's Maria, the night nurse who sits with me when I can't sleep and listens to stories about my late husband. There's Frank, the maintenance man who brings me cuttings from the garden and asks advice about his own mother. There's Dr. Peterson, who treats me like an intelligent human being rather than a collection of symptoms to manage. These people have become my chosen family, and they'll be the ones who benefit from my estate when I'm gone. Maria will get enough to buy the house she's been dreaming of. Frank will get his mother the care she needs. Dr. Peterson's free clinic will get an endowment that will help low-income seniors for decades to come. My biological children will get exactly what they gave me in my time of need, nothing. Well, that's not entirely true. They'll get a letter I've written, to be delivered with their inheritance papers. It explains exactly why they're getting nothing, exactly how their love felt from my perspective, exactly what it costs to treat your mother like a burden to be managed rather than a person to be cherished. I sleep well at night knowing that my money will go to people who see value in me beyond my bank account. I've learned that family isn't about blood or obligation or inherited wealth, it's about choosing to love someone without expecting anything in return. My children thought they were so clever, manipulating a confused old woman into signing away her independence. But they forgot that the woman who raised 3 children alone, who built a substantial nest egg from nothing, who survived decades of hardship and sacrifice, might just be clever enough to outmaneuver them. They wanted my money without earning it, my gratitude without deserving it, my compliance without respecting me. Instead, they got a lesson in what happens when you underestimate the woman who taught you everything you know about survival. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic or immediate. Sometimes it's simply letting people experience the natural consequences of their choices. My children chose to see me as an inconvenience, so I've made myself conveniently absent from their financial future. They chose to treat me like I was already dead, so I've given them a preview of what my actual death will cost them. The beautiful irony is that they put me in here to control me, but being here has given me more freedom than I've had in years. No house to maintain, no yard work to worry about, no children dropping by whenever they need something. Just me, my choices, and my money, safely tucked away where grasping hands can never reach it. Sunset Manor may have beige walls and plastic flowers, but it's also given me something precious, the ability to spend my final years surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I have. That's worth more than all the money my children thought they were entitled to. And every morning when I wake up in my chosen home, paid for with my earned money, surrounded by my chosen family, I smile knowing that my children are still out there somewhere, wondering where all that money went, never realizing that the confused old woman they tried to warehouse was actually the smartest person in the room.